Finding a client is always a big challenge when you are just getting started as a freelancer. And although I recommend every beginner to start with a freelancing platform, Upwork or Fiverr, it takes some time to find a client on a freelancing platform. You have to learn how to navigate the freelancing platform. You have to create a portfolio. You have to do a lot of things. You have to send so many proposals. And that is why if you are just getting started, it will be a good idea to use freelancing platform, but also to utilize cold outreach. Because if you do cold outreach right, then you have a much higher chance of finding clients very fast. But there are so many ways to do cold outreach, and if you do cold outreach in a wrong way, then you are just going to look like a spam. You are just going to look like a scam, and every email or message you send to client, it might even end up in their spam folder. So that is why if you want to do cold outreach, remember that you can find client much faster using cold outreach method. But you have to do it right in order to succeed. There are two ways to do cold outreach. You can do cold outreach via email, or you can do cold outreach via social media, Facebook, Instagram, or even LinkedIn. Let me give you an example. About 3 weeks ago, I hired a video editor for one of my clients, and I did hire the video editor via cold outreach. He reached out to me via email and I ended up hiring him. I had an intention of posting the job on Upwork to find the right video editor, but then I received his email, his cold email, and he did it right. So I responded to him and I ended up hiring him for my client. Let's start with email outreach. How email outreach works is you find people who are potentially going to benefit from your services and you send them an email to introduce yourself and your services and how you can help them improve whatever they are doing. Let's take an example of a YouTube thumbnail design. If you are a graphic designer and you want to do YouTube thumbnail design for clients, the way to start is you just go to YouTube and find YouTube channels that are serious. By serious, I mean they are posting at least one video per week and they have an established YouTube channels. They have a channel with around 1,000 subscribers, anywhere between 500 to 1,000 subscribers. So they are not too big and they are not too small. And then you check their YouTube thumbnails and make sure you can do better than the thumbnails they have on their channels. When they meet this criteria, you can go to their YouTube About section, find their email addresses, and you can then send them an email to introduce yourself and your services and how you can help them improve their YouTube click-through rate. And if you do this right, then you have a much higher chance of getting a response fast compared to using a freelancing platform Upwork or Fiverr. The other route, which is using social media, you just use social media to reach out to potential clients. And with this method, you can use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Depending on the type of service you are offering, you just decide which platform your potential client spend most of their times on. Let's take an example of podcast management. If you want to be a podcast manager and you are looking for people who have a podcast to manage their podcast, what you just need to do is go to a podcast listing, podcast directory, something like listing note, and you find podcasts which are serious podcasts, not too big and not too small, and you find their social media handles. Then you reach out to them via social media and you introduce yourself and what you can do for them and how you can help make whatever they do better. So this is social media cold outreach. You just reach out to them where you believe they hang out the most. And cold outreach is something so many people do, and majority of the people who do cold outreach are doing it wrong, because a lot of the cold outreach emails that I personally received, they end up in my spam folder. And you want to avoid this. If you do it right, then it doesn't matter the amount of people who send cold outreach emails, you are going to stand out. And the first thing that you need to make sure you have in order to succeed with cold outreach, whether via email or social media, is make sure whatever service you are offering, you have a sample that you can provide to potential client, because they don't know you, they don't know anything about you. So how can they trust you if you don't have a sample to show to them? Let me give you an example of the video editor that I hired recently. When he sent me some samples of the videos he edited, I liked the editing he did, but I had a hard time trusting that he really did the editing. What if he found the video somewhere he didn't edit the videos himself? And what I did was, I sent him a 10-minute video and I asked him to edit the first 1 minute and send it to me as a test. before I made any payments to him. And he took the video, edited the first 1 minute, sent me the 1 minute edit, and I really like it. I then ended up paying him to start working for my client. So this is how cold outreach works. If you want to succeed with cold outreach, you have to be willing to prove your skills. And in order to prove your skills, you have to have samples. It doesn't matter whether you have previous client or not. The clients, your potential client, are only going to be interested in what you can do. They don't care if you have 100 past clients or not. If you can do the job, they can hire you. If you can prove to them you can do the job, then they will just go ahead and hire you. And so whether you have previous client or not, whatever service you are going to start offering, make sure you have sample. If you want to become a graphic designer, create really very attractive sample and include it in your initial message to the potential client. If you are offering web design, create some samples, create some template, and include the link to the template in your proposal in the initial message that you send to reach out to them. If you are a content writer, write some content. Whatever you are going to do, create sample and include it in your initial message that you reach out to them. If you are offering data entry service, then go to Google Sheet and create some data file. It doesn't matter what is in the data file. If it looks nice and you sort some data correctly in the data file, then that is all you need to do. And another thing that is going to really help you find client faster with cold outreach is creating pre-samples. And I don't mean to just start creating sample and send to client. What if you didn't hear back from them? The way to do this is, if you are offering graphic design, let's take an example again for a YouTube thumbnail design. If you are going to do YouTube thumbnail design, when you find the YouTube channels that you are interested in, then just find 2 to 3 videos on each channel and create the best thumbnails for the channels without even speaking to the channel owner. And then when you reach out to them, include the samples that you create for them in your message, in your email, or in your social media message. If you want to protect your work so that they cannot use it, you can just add a watermark. You can add your big name on the thumbnails so that they can see the design, but they cannot use it. And if you create something really amazing, better than the one they have, then you have a much higher chance of getting hired. And also, one thing to avoid is, before sending an email, if you are going to use email, make sure you use a professional email. You don't have to use a custom domain email, but don't use sadiqumar19725@gmail.com. Try to have a clean professional email. You can have sadiqumar@gmail.com. If it is taken, you can have Sadiq Umar and you can add something specific to what you are offering. Maybe Sadiq Umar designer or Sadiq Umar graphic design. Whatever service you offer, you can include it in your email so that it looks professional. Because if you have an unprofessional email, it is also going to discourage potential client, and it might even contribute to your email being in a spam folder. Same thing goes for social media. If you are going to use social media to reach out to clients, make sure you create a brand new social media account. You add some content in the social media account so that it doesn't look like a spammy profile. You create the profile, you make some posts, you add your pictures, make it more personal, and then you use it to reach out to clients. Because if you use your personal profile, then you probably have a lot of personal posts and maybe some controversial things in your profile that you might not be interested in sharing with clients. And one thing also that is going to stop you from getting hired using cold outreach is grammar error, grammar and typing mistakes. And that is why before you send your initial message to client, make sure you use Grammarly and proofread. Make sure there are no grammatical error and there are no typing mistakes, because that's a good way to prove to the potential client you are not a professional. So make sure you use Grammarly to proofread anything before you send it to potential client. And when you contact the potential client, follow up. If you didn't hear back from them, send them a follow-up message or a follow-up email, because sometimes they might see your message and they might intend to get back to you and they might forget. So if you follow up with them, then it will be a good idea to remind them of your initial message. So when you send your message, give them about a week. If you didn't hear back from them, make sure you send a follow-up email or a follow-up message to remind them of your initial message. And also, one important thing I will recommend you have if you are doing cold outreach is a portfolio. You should have a portfolio that you can share a link with your potential client to click and check out all the information they want to know about you. And the best place to have your portfolio is in Canva. You can create a portfolio website in Canva, and share a view link with your potential client. When they click a view link, they can view all the pages in your portfolio easily. You can watch this next video for an entire tutorial on how to create your portfolio website in Canva. If you find this video helpful, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next one.